Picture yourself on a treadmill. You're jogging along, doing basically everything society told you to do.
Right, checking all the boxes.
Exactly. You got the education, you landed a decent job, you're putting in the work. But then the belt speeds up just a little bit.
So you run faster.
Yeah, you run faster. Then the incline goes up. You start sweating, pushing yourself to the absolute limit. I mean, you're working longer hours, earning a bit more money. Maybe you even get that promotion.
But you look around
And
and
you're in the exact same spot. You haven't actually moved forward an inch. I mean, have you ever felt like that? Like you're running on this constantly accelerating financial treadmill, and somehow, despite all your exhaustion, you're never actually getting ahead.
it is an incredibly common, exhausting feeling.
Yeah.
And frankly, I mean, it's basically the defining anxiety of our modern working world.
Yeah. And that feeling of just like running in place is exactly what we're dissecting in today's deep dive.
It's a great topic.
We're unpacking some really incredible insights framed around a modern parable. It's from a book called The Latte Factor by David Bach and John David Mann. And it's the story about a 27-year-old named Zoe.
Right, the travel editor.
Yes, a travel editor living in New York City, which is deeply ironic because she's never actually traveled anywhere.
Yeah, she just edits other people's photos of trips.
Exactly. She has this respectable title. She works incredibly hard, but she is absolutely crushed by student loans and credit card debt. She is the literal poster child for living paycheck to paycheck.
And honestly, her situation feels really uncomfortably familiar for a lot of people.
It really does.
It feels familiar because she represents, like, the default state for most working professionals today. And through Zoe's journey, we're going to extract 3 specific secrets to financial freedom.
Right, because our mission today is to demystify this whole, intimidating idea of wealth building. We want to prove that you do not need a massive jaw-dropping salary or a winning lottery ticket.
Or some rich great aunt to leave you an inheritance.
Yeah, exactly. Just to live the life you're actually dreaming about.
But to understand how to finally step off that financial treadmill, we first have to understand the psychology of why smart, hardworking people like Zoe get trapped on it in the first place.
Okay, let's unpack this, because Zoe's starting point is so incredibly relatable. She's at her local coffee shop in Brooklyn before work, and she's staring at this beautiful framed photograph of a seaside village in Mykonos, Greece.
It's an expensive photo.
Yeah, it costs $1,200, and her immediate automatic internal dialogue is like the chorus of her entire life. She just thinks, I can't afford it.
Right.
So what does she do? She decides her only way out is to interview for a new job at this massive media agency. I mean, it's going to mean brutal hours, way higher stress, but, it pays significantly more money.
Which brings us to the first major psychological trap, or myth number 1 from the book. And that's this deeply ingrained idea that simply making more money makes you rich.
Because it seems like it should, right?
It seems like it, yeah. But to understand why this is a trap, the authors use a great analogy. Think of your earnings as the tide, and your spending as a boat sitting on the water.
Okay.
When the tide rises, meaning your income goes up through a raise or a new job,
Yeah.
the boat just rises right along with it.
Oh, because we naturally upgrade our lifestyle to match the new paycheck.
Yes, exactly. We lease a slightly nicer car, we move to an apartment with an extra bedroom, we buy nicer clothes for that new, higher-paying job.
Right, so the gap between what we earn and what we spend never actually widens.
Never. There's this character in Zoe's story, a Texan named Barron, who used to be in the oil business, and he uses this fantastic old phrase to describe this. He calls it, big hat, no cattle.
Big hat, no cow. So, like, projecting an image of wealth without the actual substance to back it up.
Precisely. I mean,
Yeah.
Barron talks about people who look incredibly wealthy on the outside. They have the massive houses, the designer wardrobes, the luxury SUV.
Yeah, the ones who look like they have it all figured out.
Right. But behind the scenes,
Mhm.
they are drowning in debt. They're stressed out of their minds, just making the minimum monthly payments on this absolute mountain of credit cards.
Wow.
So they have the big hat, but absolutely no actual assets. No cattle to sustain them if the paychecks ever stopped.
So it's a complete illusion. You look at a guy like Barron and you feel jealous of his lifestyle, but if you actually looked at his balance sheet, you're really just jealous of his debt.
Exactly.
But okay, let me push back here. If out-earning your spending is a trap, what's the actual fix? Because trying to save money when you are completely broke feels like I don't know, it feels like trying to fill a bathtub when the drain is wide open.
That's a great way to put it.
Like you can turn the faucet on full blast, get that higher paying job, but the water is still just pouring straight out the bottom.
That is the perfect way to visualize it. Since turning the faucet up higher, raising the income tide, doesn't fix a leaky tub. You have to plug the drain.
Right.
And you plug it by aggressively claiming the very first drops of water before they can escape. And this is secret number 1 from the book. Pay yourself first.
Now, wait, I want to clarify something right away here because modern treat yourself culture has completely hijacked this concept.
Oh, 100%.
Like paying yourself first does not mean getting your paycheck and immediately going out to buy a new designer outfit or, dropping $200 on dinner as a reward for surviving the work week.
Not at all. Pay yourself first is a strict mathematical habit. It means keeping the first hour of your daily income strictly for yourself to build your own future.
The first hour.
Yes. If you work a standard 8-hour day, that first hour represents roughly 10 to 12% of your gross pay. You have to capture that first hour before you pay the government in taxes, before you pay your landlord, and definitely before you pay MasterCard or Visa.
Which feels completely backward to how society conditions us to operate. I mean, we're taught to pay our bills first and then save whatever scraps are left over at the end of the month.
Except there are never any scraps left over.
Never.
Think about when you're on an airplane. The flight attendants always give that same speech, right? In the event of an emergency, put your own oxygen mask on first before assisting others.
Right, yeah.
It feels selfish in the moment, but if you pass out from hypoxia, you're completely useless to the person sitting next to you. Financially, you have to secure your own oxygen first.
That makes a lot of sense.
If you spend your entire life giving the first fruits of your labor to everyone else, consider the math. I mean, an average person will work 90,000 hours over their lifetime.
90,000 hours. Just let that sit for a second. 90,000 hours of commuting, answering emails, sitting in meetings, stressing over deadlines.
And if you don't secure that first hour for yourself, you're going to reach the end of those 90,000 hours and have absolutely nothing to show for it but a gold watch and a depleted bank account. But if you do capture that first hour, the mechanics of compound interest take over, and the math is staggering. If you save just $5 a day in a pre-tax investment account at a 10% annual return over 40 years, it grows to nearly $1 million.
$5 a day. That is less than a fast food meal turning into $1 million.
And if you save $25 a day, which represents roughly 1 hour of Zoe's pay in her current job at that same 10% over 40 years, it yields over $3.4 million.
Okay, I have to stop you there. I am going to channel Zoe's deeply cynical roommate, Jeffrey, for a second here.
Oh, for it.
Wait, is a 10% return actually realistic, or is that just like fairy tale math from a bygone era? Because turning $25 a day into $3.5 million sounds like a late night infomercial scam.
I know, that skepticism is entirely natural. It's exactly the pushback people always have.
Mm-hmm.
But let's look at the historical data. Since 1926, a century of data that includes the Great Depression, World War II, the dot-com bust, the 2008 financial crisis, and, multiple global pandemics, the stock market has averaged an annual gain of over 10%.
Wow, really? Even with all those crashes?
Yes. Obviously, the market has terrible years where it drops significantly, but it also has incredible years where it surges. Point is, over a 40-year timeline, the big picture always trends upward at that historical average. The math isn't a fairy tale, it's just historical reality.
Okay. But mathematically knowing I should save is completely different from actually doing it. I can hear you listening to this right now thinking, I can't even stick to a low-carb diet for a single week. How on earth am I supposed to rely on sheer willpower to save $25 a day for 40 years?
You don't. And that brings us to secret number 2. Don't budget, make it automatic.
Don't budget.
Right. Budgets are exactly like diets. They are incredibly easy to start on a Sunday night when you're feeling highly motivated, but they're almost impossible to stick with long-term because they fundamentally war against human nature.
Because they require constant willpower.
Exactly. Daily willpower. And willpower suffers from fatigue.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because we actually already participate in automated systems, but only with the things that take money away from us.
Oh, that's such a good point.
Think about your own life right now. We automatically renew our gym memberships, even if we haven't gone in 6 months. We automatically pay for like 3 different streaming services every month plus cloud storage without even looking at the bill.
Corporate America set it up that way because they understand human psychology perfectly.
Right. They know that if we had to manually write a check for $10 every time we wanted to watch a movie, we wouldn't do it.
Hmm.
But when it comes to funding our own futures, we suddenly decide we're going to fight human nature with a complicated spreadsheet. I mean, it's absurd.
It is completely absurd. You have to remove the friction. And, the government figured this out decades ago. Well, if the IRS waited for citizens to budget their money all year and manually write a massive check for their taxes every April, the country would go bankrupt. No one would have the money saved.
Yeah, that would be a disaster.
So what do? They set up a system to automatically siphon taxes out of your paycheck before it ever even hits your bank account. You never see the money, so you learn to live without it.
Oh, right.
You must do the exact same thing for your wealth. You route your first hour of pay automatically, directly from your paycheck, into a pre-tax retirement account, like a 401k or an IRA.
So it's out of sight, completely out of mind. You just adapt to the slightly smaller paycheck immediately.
Exactly. But doing this in a pre-tax, tax-deferred account isn't just about automation. It fundamentally supercharges the math we talked about earlier.
Okay, how?
Let me explain how the tax drag works. If you invest $100,000 over 30 years at a 10% return, but it's in a normal account and you're taxed on the gains along the way, it grows to roughly $661,000.
Which, I mean, it's still great, right?
It is. But look what happens when you remove the tax drag. If you put that same money in a tax-deferred account where it grows untouched by the IRS year after year, it nearly triples to $1.7 million.
Wait, really? Why is the gap that massive? Just from avoiding taxes?
Because of how compounding works. When you pay taxes on investment gains every year, you are literally removing chunks of your compounding engine. You're taking fuel out of the tank.
Oh, I see.
But in a tax-deferred account, the thousands of dollars you would have handed over to the government stay in your account. And then, crucially, that unpaid tax money earns its own interest.
So your money isn't just growing, the government's cut is growing for you, multiplying over decades.
Exactly.
Okay, so automation is the engine and tax deferral is the supercharger. But that brings us back to the most immediate problem. Where does the fuel come from in the first place? If you're listening to this auditing your own life and you are already stretched to the absolute limit like Zoe, who can barely make her minimum credit card payments, how do you magically manifest 25 spare dollars a day to feed this engine?
This is the core revelation of the entire philosophy, and it requires looking really closely at our daily habits.
So what does this all mean? Is the answer just to stop drinking coffee? Because that is the absolute most annoying cliche personal finance advice on the internet, right? Stop buying lattes and you'll suddenly be a millionaire.
Ooh, not at all. And the financial mentor in Zoe's story, a wise older barista named Henry, makes this very clear. The latte factor is a metaphor.
Okay, a metaphor for what?
It is not about being a miserable penny pincher or depriving yourself of small joys. It's about identifying the small, completely mindless daily extravagances that drain your wealth without actually adding any meaningful value or joy to your life.
Let's actually do the math on Zoe's morning routine because she calculates it on a napkin at the coffee shop. And it's a terrifying mirror for a lot of us.
Yeah, it really is.
Henry asks her to walk through a typical day. First, a double shot latte. That's $4.50.
And she grabs a muffin with it, right?
Yeah.
That's $2.75. So she hasn't even made it to the office yet, and she's down over $7.
Then around 10:30, she hits the wall and grabs a fresh squeezed organic juice from the lobby. $7.
Then she buys a mediocre salad at the company cafeteria for lunch. $14.
And finally, an afternoon bottled water for $1.50. You add that all up, and Zoe is bleeding nearly $30 a day.
And the tragedy is, none of this brings her deep joy. It's just absolute routine convenience.
It's her default, unthinking state.
Yeah. Think about your own morning right now. The unused subscriptions, the delivery fees on takeout, the premium upgrades you don't even notice anymore. When Zoe runs her $30 a day through Henry's compound interest calculator, $30 a day, 5 days a week, at that historical 10% over 40 years, she discovers that her unthinking, completely forgettable daily routine is costing her over $4 million in lost wealth.
$4 million. She traded $4 million of future freedom for mediocre cafeteria salads and bottled water she could have just gotten from a tap.
And even if you run the numbers at a highly conservative 5% interest rate, assuming, terrible market conditions, it still comes out to nearly $1 million.
Wow.
The realization is profound. The money is already there. The fuel for your wealth engine is currently slipping through your fingers in $5 increments.
But realizing that requires confronting some really uncomfortable truths. If the money is already in your hands, it means you can't play the victim anymore.
No, you can't.
You can't blame your boss or the economy or your parents. You are ultimately responsible for your own rescue.
And that is a very tough pill to swallow. In the story, Zoe learns this from her boss, Barbara.
Right, Barbara.
Zoe always assumed Barbara was just a stressed-out senior editor like her, completely reliant on her next paycheck. But it turns out Barbara is secretly a multimillionaire who has been quietly practicing these exact automated secrets for decades.
I love that twist.
Yeah, and Barbara dismantles two huge cultural myths for Zoe. The first is myth number 2. It takes money to make money. We just saw with the napkin math, it emphatically does not. It just takes small, trivial amounts saved consistently over time.
And what's the other myth Barbara shatters?
Myth number 3. The subconscious belief that someone else will eventually take care of you.
Ah, the Prince Charming fallacy. The idea that marriage or a corporate pension or, a government program will eventually swoop in and save the day.
Exactly. And Barbara lays out some incredibly sobering data from the book to destroy this myth, specifically regarding women, though the core warning applies to everyone.
That's the data.
Well, women, statistically, earn 20% less than men. They spend an average of 10 more years completely out of the workforce, often bearing the brunt of child rearing or elder care.
Right.
Because of that lost compounding time, they accumulate 34% less in retirement savings. Yet, they live an average of 7 years longer than men.
Which means they need more money to survive a longer retirement, but they actually have drastically less.
It gets worse. Most shockingly, 80% of married women will eventually die widowed. And 4 out of 5 widows who are currently living in poverty were not poor until their husbands passed away.
That is just, wow. It's chilling to hear those numbers out loud.
It's a harsh reality.
But it perfectly synthesizes the absolute necessity of this whole framework, right?
Right.
Your wealth is exactly like your physical health. You cannot outsource it.
Nope.
You cannot hire someone to do your push-ups for you, and you cannot passively sit back and hope someone else will secure your financial dignity. There is no Prince Charming coming with a magical bag of cash. You have to become your own Prince Charming.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it forces a complete shift in your identity. You go from being a passive passenger in your financial life, just hoping the boat doesn't sink, to being the active captain navigating the ship.
But that brings up a really crucial tension.
What's that?
If the whole point of fixing the boat is just to scrape and save and hoard every penny so you can be a rich 80-year-old in a nursing home, well, that sounds like a miserable way to spend your youth.
Yeah, it does.
If we're cutting out our daily conveniences and working so hard, why are we doing all this just to look at a high score in a bank account when we're too old to actually enjoy it?
That is the crucial missing piece of the puzzle. And it is secret number 3. Live rich now. The wealth is completely pointless without a purpose. And this is introduced through a fascinating concept called the oculus.
Like the architectural structure, the Oculus in New York.
It shares the same root, but Henry, the wise barista, uses it as a term from photography. In a camera, the oculus is the viewfinder. It's where you place your eye.
Oh.
But metaphorically, it represents your perspective. It is the specific, intentional vision you have in your mind's eye before you ever point the lens or press the shutter.
I really love that visual because if you don't know what picture you're trying to take, you're just randomly snapping photos of the pavement.
Exactly.
If you know you want to capture a beautiful sunset, you stop wasting your film on the distractions around you. And in Zoe's story, defining this picture reaches a really emotional climax.
Yeah, with her mother.
Right. Her mother is on her deathbed, reflecting on a perfectly safe, respectable life. And her mother confesses that her biggest regret is playing it too safe. She looks at Zoe and pleads, don't live half your life. Live it all.
That devastating moment forces Zoe to actually define her oculus. She realizes her core values aren't having a slightly bigger apartment or buying expensive lunches to impress coworkers or getting a fancier job title.
Right.
When she truly focuses her lens, her core values are freedom, adventure, and beauty.
And once you actually name those values, the way you use your money completely changes. Think about Henry, the barista. It turns out he isn't just a guy pouring coffee.
Not at all.
He owns the entire coffee shop. He bought the building it sits in. He's incredibly wealthy. But he didn't wait until he was 65 to enjoy his life. He takes what he calls radical sabbaticals.
I love that term.
Me too. He takes 6 weeks off every single year in the prime of his life to travel the world and take spectacular photographs.
And Zoe adopts this exact philosophy. She refuses to wait 40 years to be happy. Instead of a budget, she opens automated accounts named after her values.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah. She sets up an automatic adventure account and a photography course account.
Hmm.
Within months, by just redirecting her Latte Factor, she pays for the photography class she previously convinced herself she couldn't afford.
Wow.
By her 30th birthday, she is taking her own radical sabbaticals, including finally traveling to Mykonos to take her very own photograph of that seaside sunrise. She realizes she is already life-rich.
Because the money is no longer the master. It is simply a tool used to fund her core values.
Exactly. The first two secrets, pay yourself first and make it automatic. Those are just the mechanics. They are the how.
Right.
But the third secret, live rich, now, that's the why. Without a compelling why, human nature dictates you will never stick to the how.
Okay, let's bring this all together. We went looking for the 3 secrets to financial freedom to get you off that accelerating treadmill, and here is the blueprint. Secret 1. Pay yourself first. Claim the first hour of your daily income to secure your own oxygen mask before giving your energy to everyone else.
Yeah.
Secret 2. Make it automatic. Stop relying on willpower and diets. Route that money instantly into a tax-advantaged account where the government's cut works for you instead of against you.
Exactly.
And secret 3, live rich now. Define your Oculus. Figure out what actually brings you deep, meaningful joy and violently redirect your money to fund that instead of letting it bleed out on mindless daily conveniences.
This raises an important question, and I want to leave you, the listener, with a final practical challenge. Pull up your bank or credit card statement from the last 7 days.
Just the last 7 days.
Right. Don't judge it, just look at the raw data.
Hmm.
If a total stranger looked at those transactions, what would they assume your core values are? Do your daily expenses actually reflect your deepest dreams and your long-term life goals? Or do they just reflect a series of temporary daily distractions?
Are you intentionally paying for your Oculus, or are you just unconsciously buying a slightly bigger boat for a rising tide? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Don't wait 40 years to find your freedom. Go set up those automatic systems today, plug the drain in your bathtub, and finally step off the treadmill.